Alright folks, apparently the deep state is real, but not in the way we thought. We just learned about a new case that raises some serious concerns about law enforcement mixing themselves with far-right extremism because a federal judge just found Lieutenant Shane Lehman guilty of lying to investigators, undermining police work, and sharing tips with Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys. This reads, DC police officer convicted over leaking information to Proud Boys leader. Again, I guess the deep state is real, but the deep state includes police officers pulling strings to help out right-wing extremists and help them get out of their absolutely insane actions, or at least avoid the consequences. So, Lamond was convicted of undermining police work by leaking sensitive information to Enrique Tarrio, the leader of the Proud Boys, over and over. Over and over, this dude would come out and give Tarrio certain evidence. Lehman wasn't using Tarrio as some sort of informant or a source. It was the other way around. So Tarrio would come to this police officer, or this lieutenant, and the lieutenant would actually pass on tips, pass on updates about the situation, including details about the investigation into Enrique Tarrio. And I just want to break down with my contributor Arya exactly how the right, or at least the far right, can collude with some of our law enforcement officers to achieve their goals. So really quickly, in her ruling, Judge Amy Berman Jackson of Federal District Court in Washington said that the hundreds of messages she reviewed between Mr. Lamond and Mr. Tarrio illustrated that Mr. Lamond had been undermining his own colleagues with entirely unauthorized back-channeling with Mr. Tarrio, conduct that she viewed as entirely contradictory to the police department's interests. It's not even funny, but this dude was directly going against the grain of his own department in order to help out one of his far-right buddies. I mean, look at these two absolute doofuses trying to undermine our democracy. So during his 2-week trial, Mr. Lamond's lawyers had argued that he had reached out to Mr. Tarrio as a part of his duties, but it's very clear that's not what happened. Judge Jackson laid out how Lamond, the lieutenant, had given unsolicited information, just volunteered it about police activity that he had no business providing, and he had even been poking around, prodding others in his police department for information about their investigation of Mr. Tarrio. And I want you to listen to how the judge absolutely shredded Enrique Tarrio. So Judge Amy Berman Jackson's harshest commentary was reserved for Tarrio himself, who testified on Lamond's behalf. The judge described Tarrio as, quote, an awful witness who appeared to be trying to, quote, advance his own agenda on the stand. That agenda, she said, was not entirely clear, but included efforts to attack the legitimacy of his seditious conspiracy conviction and appeared in some ways to be a bid to obtain a pardon and to reassert his leadership of and loyalty to the Proud Boys and suggest that he's not a snitch. The judge then said he is flippant, grandiose, and obnoxious. Quote, that was Tarrio's personal performance. Now, I'm going to pull in Gen Z contributor Arya. You're going to be seeing her a lot more on this channel. She's absolutely brilliant. Arya's channel is in the description below. Watch our conversation about the implications of this.
That's probably what I'm most scared of with this, setting a precedent, is the more right-wing cops that are going to get, that know that they can get pardoned so long as they just are loyal to Donald Trump, so long as they do whatever he wants, so long as they carry out his agenda, the more that they're going to be ineffective, the more stories we're going to be hearing about it, the more Donald Trump's going to point to it and say, this is somehow the Democrats' fault. We need to privatize law enforcement. I don't even know what bullshit he's going to come up with. Like, I'm so tired of like trying to speculate, but it's going to be something.
And dude, this creates like the most perfect incentive structure, like you said, for right-wingers to commit violence, whether it's just like the average right-wing citizens, or if you're in a position of power, if you're a right-winger who works within our government, if you live in DC or you're a law enforcement agent, then anything you do in favor of Donald Trump could be pardoned. He is creating this permission structure for right-wingers to commit violence on his behalf, and he'll pardon them. And not just the right-wingers on January 6th, but the people that helped cover him up. It's not even just about the dumb fucks that went into the Capitol that day. That's what I always say. It's not even just about them. It's about the scheme leading up to it between Donald Trump, John Eastman. I think sometimes it's easy to get caught arguing about the minutia of like, oh, did this person break this barrier on January 6th? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. He probably did. But the point is that Donald Trump led that person to the Capitol through his lies. And it's just, to loop it back, it's kind of annoying to see all of these people get off and basically have permission to do this again. So I think we have to remain vigilant, not only in the media, not only you and I. The onus is now on us to call this out over the next 4 years, but we have to make sure that the rule of law stands. So what do you think the next steps forward are to combat some of this disinformation?
I mean, I've been saying for a while now, Democrats need to be on the offensive, and like we need to be re-articulating these talking points the same way that the right is. Like every time someone on Joe Rogan, on Tim Pool, on all of these right-wing podcasts at Tucker Carlson and whatnot, every time someone brings up like Hunter Biden, because I already have that in my head, they'll bring up Hunter Biden and his shady deals with Ukraine. The left doesn't do that. It's just like, oh yeah, and the billionaire next to Donald Trump. No, the richest man in the world who invested over 250, like a billion, I forget the numbers, but invested X amount of dollars into the election. Like we need to be constantly drilling that into people proactively. So then when all this disinformation comes up again, of now people are still thinking that, oh, just because Enrico Tarrio wasn't in DC, then it's fine because now the left is overcharging it. They're being so dramatic. Like no, the leader of the Proud Boys who conspired with like what 12, 15 other of his members, like it's insane that we're not constantly drilling this down into people, re-articulating it, reminding people of it.
And another prime example of what you're saying is the Matt Gaetz report that was literally released today. Now think about it. If the roles were reversed and a Democratic president had helped cover up a sex trafficking scandal, somebody sleeping with an underage girl, and then this Democratic Speaker of the House helped cover that up too, they would never forget it. They would actually draw conspiracies about how every single Democrat is actually a pedophile. Every single Democrat must be sleeping with underage girls or minors. Every single Democrat must be doing this, but when we're do it, we've lost control of the narrative so hard that we're not able to drill down that Matt Gaetz was a part of this. So I guess you have a unique perspective because you are a young woman. So how do you feel about Republicans creating this permission structure?
I mean, I think it's so funny what you were just describing. Literally just QAnon. Like, is that not what their whole thing is? Is that Democrats are like having this whole like? Is that like I've heard it from all of the Magadonians in my life growing up. Like I was hearing that Joe Biden was sniffing little girls' ears from like age 7. Like it's crazy that this is now. He's talking about running for governor. Like he at AmFest, he goes on and on. Everyone's wondering what I'm gonna do. Everyone's wondering, maybe I might join the Senate. Maybe I might be governor. Why are these even viable options? What the fuck? Like it's crazy. And like I don't even think it's exclusive to just young women, even though I hear it more often. I think it's impacting young men like a lot too, because as much as I'm getting disgusted by hearing all of like the guys at my job or like the guys in my life or whatever talking more and more like bigots because of this permission structure that's been allowed in authoritative figures, which you can say all you want about how, oh, it's just politics, like it doesn't really affect people's actions on the day-to-day. I think politics and culture is like a lot more intertwined than people think, especially now with the media. It's like it's so hard to get away from the two. They're so intertwined at this point. But like as much as I hate hearing about it, the guys that I'm talking to don't even believe what they're saying. Like as soon as I press them of like, do you actually think that my body is your choice? It's like, no. And they feel so bad about it. Like as soon as I like push them even just the tiniest bit, and they fall apart like fucking gelatin, like jelly. They just melt into a puddle. And like, why are they doing this? What I don't understand it. I think it's hurting. It's just hurting everyone.
It feels like during our most formative years, when we were in middle school, I was in high school, I'm sure you were in middle school too, Trump was our president. So that means that these young men, people that I know too from high school back in Indiana, they grew up just constantly listening to Trump, constantly having permission to say stuff like in that vein. And I think that does have a downstream effect. Like you said, like culture is downstream from politics. When we enable this stuff and it's enabled on a national stage, yeah, it's going to show. And when Matt Gaetz is now running for the governor, honestly, it wouldn't even surprise me if he won. Republicans are thrilled to vote for somebody who slept with an underage girl, but then they'll blame it on Democrats. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm surprised that more people haven't been talking and tying this back to Donald Trump and his whole Miss Universe thing. Like he literally bragged about this. Why are we surprised? Why are people trying to deny this? And it's so funny. The denials are always so technical. Like I've heard people like, okay, well, 17 is the age of consent in some states. Are you fucking kidding me? That's the argument that you're taking?
That's a silver bullet argument. That's a good. Everything the QAnoners said is true. Everything that QAnon said is 100% true, but reverse scenario. So they thought that billionaires behind the scenes were pulling the strings to help hide sex traffickers. They thought billionaires behind the scenes were pulling the strings to get Democrats elected so the Democrats could cover up their sex trafficking crimes Jesus, this is exactly what is happening, but in reverse. Republicans get elected, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, Donald Trump, even billionaire Elon Musk. He didn't get elected, but billionaire Elon Musk is now helping cover up this Matt Gaetz scheme. When has George Soros ever done anything like that? It just blows my mind. But thank you for joining us, Arya. I can't wait to have you on the channel more. It's going to be a great year. Arya's channel is in the description below. Go check it out, and we'll do it again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.